the question I have for you, I've seen you described as what's termed as a creative placemaker, and I wanted you to try to help explain for those that are uninitiated what that actually means and how that manifests itself both inside and outside of your recently appointed role as the executive director of Live Music Project.
Ooh, yeah, that's a lot. So creative placemaking is the practice of your art making practices reinforcing community identity. And so when we think about using your art making practices to bring people in so that they see themselves as part of a creative community or a supportive community, whatever it is, it's reinforcing. So when we say something like New Orleans is a music town or Nashville is a music town, and you go, well, what is a music town? Like, what does it mean to be a place that is that thing? You know, when we talk about, the difference between Boston and Dallas, if something jumped to your mind from Boston and something jumped to your mind from Dallas, you are already aware of placemaking practices. You're already aware of what makes a place, you know, what we associate with places. And the creative side of that is just that we have so many people that are working in the broadest sense of the arts and culture in areas that help us understand the place and time that we live in. And so that's how I go about with thinking about creative placemaking. To take it a step farther into its more academic sense is about cross-sector partners, right? So we're thinking about people who work in government, work in civic situations, people who work in finance, people who work in the arts, all coming together to contribute to projects, to work that incorporates arts into the life of a city or the life of an area, the life of a neighborhood, etc. So when I think about creative placemaking in what I do, I find that our organization was born and raised in Seattle, and we have recently expanded to a more national organization, which means that we can support more communities across the United States and beyond. But the things that we learned about coming up in Seattle is that by creating a virtual hub where people go to find out information about concerts, is that they start to see their city as a music city. They start to see themselves in the context of there's art and culture all around me. I can go to this website and I see that as a listener, I could go to any of these. Oh, there's a venue that's in my neighborhood. My neighborhood has venues in it. I think of my neighborhood as being music focused or arts focused, right? If you are a musician or if you're an arts administrator, you're a presenter that's there and you see your organization, you see your ensemble on the same page as Seattle Symphony or Seattle Opera, you say, I'm a part of this music community. See, we're all making music. We're all in this together. That's where we start to really think about art making practices reinforcing community identity. And yeah, I get really excited about the idea of how we know we're in community with each other. And some of that is through the things that we eat. It's through the art and music that we go see or listen to, and it's through the conversations that we have. You know, those things reinforce who we are to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So then how much, especially because Live Music Project is completely a virtual company, then what's the role then when you're trying to help to create that sort of identity for a city and open up the eyes of that? How much do you feel that you need to be there as opposed to just exist in this virtual sphere to kind of promote it on the outside? Do you go to visit the places that you're going to be doing that stuff for?
This is such a great point, as I absolutely believe in showing up. In fact, I was sharing a thought recently that one of the best pieces of advice I ever got as a young musician was show up, move chairs. and it goes the same way, because showing up is one of the most important things you can do. But there's lots of ways to show up. So being in the space is one form of showing up. Showing up for people as an advocate through digital spaces or virtual spaces is another form of showing up. So it's really about, in what ways am I showing up? Am I there to engage with the art that they're making? Yes. Am I also there in the virtual spaces to help make connections and say, oh, these people have certain resources and these people have resources. If they put them together, they're actually going to amplify the resources of each other. It's a resource sharing mentality, a resource sharing value. and collaboration, not competition value. And when I'm thinking about the way that Live Music Project is expanding, and a few of our focus cities at the outset being Baltimore, which is a place that I lived in for quite a few years, and Baltimore and Portland, that as I start to go, I take these lessons from what we've learned in Seattle about what does it look like to create volunteer teams in new places, because groups of people act differently in different places. What is going to incentivize them to volunteer for their music community to show the robustness of what's going on in that scene versus what incentivizes our volunteers in Seattle to show up and contribute to the project there?
Yeah, sure. What's the 10-year dream for the organization in your mind?
So, one of my dreams really is, and this maybe is not the 10-year dream, but a dream that just kind of keeps me going every day when I do this, is being able to get off a plane anywhere in the world, and by the time I get to picking up my bag at baggage claim, I can pick a concert to go to in that city and that night, right? And that requires so many people coming together and contributing, right? So it requires that we make these connections with people who are making art. It requires that we make connections with people who want to listen to that. And then they know that they can show up. They know that they can easily go find free concerts. They can find sensory-friendly concerts. They can find concerts that have diverse programming on it because of the way that our tools are set up. And I find that that's kind of the point, is that I just want people to easily bump into information. We always like to say that access to the arts starts with access to information about the arts. People can't listen to what they can't find.
Sure.
And the more I can show up for the people that I consider my community, both listeners and performers, by making it easier for people to find each other because we have these technology tools, that's a really good day.
Yeah, it's really interesting because in some ways, the way that you talk about it, it just seems like Live Music Project is really a vehicle to amplify more grassroots kinds of knowledge than anything else, right?
Absolutely.
Like all you're there is to be able to provide the platform for more people to know about more things and associate that with other individual places and find that sort of identity either in a city that they're already in or somewhere that they're going to be going to. And then there's something really interesting about your place in that as primarily just being that conduit and otherwise just kind of letting it be about free information and trying to get that stuff to be spread in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah,
No, it's fascinating.